Hi, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to my weekly podcast about spirituality, love, death, devotion, and waking up while living in a messy world. The Satsang with Shambhavi podcast is recorded live each week with students of our nonprofit community, Jayakula. For more information and to find out about attending a satsang, visit jayakula.org. Thanks for listening. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. You're carrying around with you a lot of received patterns or received habitual patterns of responding and relating to life. The ways that you relate to yourself and your emotional patterns of response and your concepts about things and your ideas and how you use your mind and how you relate to other people are by and large, not entirely, but by and large, basically a jumble sale of used items, worn out, used, stale items. And these things make your life very complicated. You have all kinds of attachments, like attachments to an old smelly sweater. You have like attachments to old smelly ways of relating to life that you are, not letting go of. And they make everything really complicated. They get you in all kinds of entanglements and situations in which you're not seeing clearly and can't navigate clearly or wisely. Now, this tradition, or this genre of tradition, which is the biggest name for the kind of tradition that I'm practicing and teaching in, is a direct realization tradition. And the two traditions that I've studied in are called Trika Shaivism and Dzogchen. Trika Shaivism is a tradition from Kashmir, largely. And Dzogchen comes from a lot of different places, but it was sort of became what we know of it today in Tibet. And these traditions are related, both in their view and historically, and I won't go into that right now. But in any case, they are both what are called direct realization traditions. And that means that, very simply, the goal of the tradition is to see for yourself how things are, how things really are, how you really are, how life really is, to see that for yourself, but not in an ordinary way, because of course right now you're seeing things. But what you're seeing and what you're sensing and what you're feeling are very limited. So the idea of the direct realization traditions is that you do certain practices and you learn how to open your mind, open your senses, gain clarity, and very, very profound kind of relaxation so that you can engage with what is actually happening in a fuller way and express yourself more fully. Now, the problem with this tradition, for all of you, most of you, is that it's too simple. You want something to do. You want a problem to gnaw on. You want your lives to be important and complicated, and you want your spiritual practice to be the same. A lot of you would like it, if you were given very complicated yogic practices to do, which I can certainly give you if you insist. And you would like it if we talked about our tradition and our practice as if it were extremely important and urgent, because that would give your life a sense of meaning and purpose. But unfortunately, I'm not offering you any of these things unless you insist, and then you can have them for a period of time until you get over yourselves. So this tradition is extremely simple. Your job as a person entering into this tradition or staying with it, perhaps, is to open your senses, open your mind, open your heart, and simply relax without altering anything. Now, we have, in our culture, we love altering things. We are consummate meddlers. We're trying to alter the outcomes of everything and alter how our lives turn out and alter especially how everybody sees us. We spend an inordinate amount of time altering how other people see and respond to us. But our job as practitioners in this tradition could be described, as one of my teachers said, in 5 words. Relax in the natural state. That's it. That's all we're doing. Now, the catch is, how do you recognize the natural state so you can relax in it? I might say, go lie in that bed, but if you don't see the bed, you can't go lie in it. So the first step in any kind of direct realization tradition is recognition. You have to recognize the natural state of unconditioned awareness and energy. Then you can go rest in it. However, even having recognized it, you're going to find that going and resting in it isn't maybe so easy, because you are very attached to meaningfulness and urgency and problems and complications and entanglements and worrying about life. So simply forgetting about past, present, and future, letting go of all engagement with past, present, future, thinking and meddling and worrying, and simply opening your senses and opening your heart and opening your mind and resting in that uncontrived natural state without any meddling is really difficult, because you have distractions, aka karmas. So the entire practice, all the practices that we do, are to destroy those attachments so that you can be simple again. I've just had a month off, as some of you know. I need about a 6-month sabbatical, I decided. But, you know, when I was coming over here, I thought, oh my God, am I going to remember the opening chants? Because really all I'm doing is being with God. That's all I'm doing. And chants just, they're there, but they can come and go. I'm not hanging on to them. The interesting thing is that I think another teacher, I can't remember who said this, but that when you are simply resting in the natural state, you are in a state, I think he's called it the anarchy of the heart. It's anarchy because you're not following any rules. You're being there in the freshness of living presence and simply feeling and responding with clarity and skillfulness. But there's no plan, there's no rule, there's no precept, there's nothing, there's no shoulda, woulda, coulda, there's no urgency. There's only enjoyment and playfulness and clarity and things like compassion and kindness that are just happening. They're just happening. And there's no sense of anything that must be done in any particular way. You're not framing your activity in that way. I must do this, I must do that, I must follow this, I must follow that. You're being simply uncontrived, completely uncontrived, and then whatever happens, happens. It's a very active state. It's not a passive state, but there's no attempt to alter anything in any particular way. There's only responding to things that are happening. So I kind of forgot about the opening chants, and then they luckily came out of my mouth, but we have a lot of practices. There are a lot of practices you can do, and I teach a lot of practices, and I've been taught a lot of practices in both of my traditions. Those practices are only to get you to the point where you can recognize the natural state and rest in it. After that, you just keep doing that, and it all becomes very, very simple. Of course, that could not happen too, depending on you. We're all in different conditions. So when we're in that zone, while we're still recognizing and trying to find a way to release tensions and just rest in that uncontrived natural state, we're still working with that. It doesn't come so easily yet. We need rules. We need practices. We need precepts. We need the teacher breathing down our neck. But that is a temporary situation. That isn't what the tradition is saying you should end up doing for the rest of your time, embodied in a form of someone who can do practice. Because ultimately, we're only doing that to destroy the attachments that we have that prevent us from living with utter simplicity, integrated with the divine. There really isn't anything else to do once you at least partially destroy those attachments. And I read a beautiful thing today by a wonderful Dzogchen ancient guy, Longchenpa. He said, once you've recognized the natural state and you know how to rest in it, you know how to get there, even though you're not totally enlightened, it still comes and goes a bit, but basically you know your way there. Then even when karmas are arising, even when karmic vision is arising in your mind, it doesn't matter. You just laugh at it. It's all very funny. You don't have to follow it. You don't have to run after it or have it govern your life. So it's just a beautiful, humane way of looking at the practice where it's not a black and white thing. It's not like one day you're trapped in attachments and the next day you're totally enlightened. No, it happens very gradually. And there comes a point when you still have karmas, like I do, but they're just not so important, right? Because you're still identifying with the natural state, even as those karmic visions are manifesting and resolving like they do. It just becomes like weather. It's like a cloud in the sky, but you don't have to get horrified about it or try to do anything about it. So that's what I wanted to say tonight, that the real practice is simplicity itself. Nothing could be more simple. And that in order to get to that point where you can live with that kind of simplicity, you must be willing to feel and reach for what is actually here. You have to make some effort to divest yourself of karmic vision. You have to be responsible for that. If you're still going on putting a lot of credence and importance to how you see things, just ask yourself this one question. When you're all worked up about being angry at something or sad about something or disappointed in something or frustrated with something or jealous about something or hateful about something, whatever it is, ask yourself, is this a familiar feeling? Because if it is, 100% guaranteed, whatever it is you're upset about, angry about, jealous about, sad about, is your karmic vision arising. And you should immediately cease to take it seriously. You should immediately cease to insist on it. You should immediately stop insisting that anyone else agree that you're right about it. That's your responsibility. You can do hours and hours and hours and hours of seated practice, but if you are not doing that work to step out of your karmic vision and be able to have a little bit of distance on those patterns and recognize them for what they are, it doesn't really matter what you're doing on the cushion. You must be doing that work to recognize those patterns, stop taking them so seriously, and stop insisting that anybody else take them seriously either. So ask yourself, is this a familiar feeling? Have I been here before? Yeah, like every minute of every day. Right? So not taking yourself seriously means you're not moaning and groaning about this horrible pattern that you have. That is just a back door to more attachment. You're just fooling yourself if you think that worrying about and being upset about your patterns is actually getting out of your patterns. It's not. Laughing at yourself is the number one skill that we need. We're just laughing at life, at the silliness of it all.
Shambhavi, how does seated practice connect to and support the work that you're talking about?
Mm-hmm. It's absolutely required for some period of time, maybe your whole life. But first of all, the regularity of it seats your inner wind and makes it possible for you to have more clarity and more precision and more skill in your activity. And then the specific practices will basically erode your karmas. I mean, they'll do it for you as long as you participate consciously and with a kind of alertness. You can't just sleepwalk through your practice. Some people do that. Or some people do practice and all the time in their minds, they're running their karmas. So, you know, that doesn't work either. There's So you have to actually, again, open your senses to what you're doing in a very literal way. You have beads, you have sound, you have a beautiful altar, you're sitting in a certain way. You have to feel what's happening. You have to be present to that. Even if things are running, you just have to bring yourself back to what is actually happening, because this whole direct realization thing is about what is actually happening, how things actually are, how you actually are. And the practices get us to the point where we can experience that. So, for instance, mantras, starts to relieve you very slowly of that feeling of being separate. It opens up your channels, it seats your prana, it opens your heart, it allows you to feel more devotion, slowly over time for most people. And other practices the same. So it really is a destructive process, destroying impediments to you having a clear recognition of what you really are. But if we think that seated practice is the be-all and end-all, it's not. It's how are we doing it, and how are we bringing that attitude into our everyday life. We have to do that too if we really want to have significant transformation in this lifetime. Of course, you could go as slow as you want. If you just do 20 minutes of practice a day for the rest of your life, that's great. That's a slow path, but it's certainly a great thing to do some practice every day.